there's a principle here in this whole Kevin Warsh, Jay Powell business with the Fed. No one is above the law, including the Fed. I want to talk about these principles. Welcome back to the show, John Yoo, who's a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and University of California, Berkeley law professor, and my pal Mike Faulkender, former Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. So, John, we talked last evening. Look, the Justice Department is requesting documents from the Federal Reserve. There's no criminal indictment yet. There's no nothing. They subpoena for documents. My argument here is that the Federal Reserve has no right to disregard that Justice Department request. It's an agency of the executive branch of the government. Next thing you know, the Treasury will ignore the DOJ, the FCC, the SEC. It's insanity. I'm not judging one way or another. I don't see criminality here, but I'm saying if they want those documents, it's up to the Federal Reserve to give them, and they're not doing it, John.
Yes, Larry. The Federal Reserve is an agency of the United States. If it's not, then what is it? It's not a part of Congress. It's not a part of the judiciary. It's part of the executive branch of the United States. Every agency that carries out federal law has to be responsible to the president, has to carry out presidential orders. So the Federal Reserve, by refusing to cooperate with the other agency, the Justice Department, that also works for the president, it's claiming it lives in some kind of constitutional twilight zone where they're not in any branch of government, they're independent and free of any control. That's not possible under our constitutional system. The Supreme Court has made clear every branch that carries out federal law has to be responsible to the president. So if, for example, the Fed's right, then as you say, Larry, why can't other agencies that do important things say they're independent too, like the Justice Department, the Defense Department, the Treasury Department? Why don't they refuse listening to the president too next?
I mean, no criminal charges have been brought. I don't even think a grand jury has been impaneled. I might be wrong there, but I don't think so. But the point is, President Trump wants to explore what happened with the cost overruns, okay? He has a right to explore that. We're going to get to the banking committee in just a minute. I don't know what is the Fed hiding? And how do these Fed lawyers think they can continue to get away? This is not this is a bigger, this is a principle that is bigger than Jay Powell, is bigger than Kevin Warsh. I want Kevin Warsh to get in as fast as possible, too. But this principle has to be upheld. If DOJ wants documents, they should get documents. The executive runs the executive branch.
That's right, Larry. This is more important than Jay Powell, the Fed. What's at stake here is constitutional government. The Constitution sets up one branch to carry out the law. That's the executive branch. No agency is so important that they can exempt themselves from the Constitution. And so you're right, Larry. In fact, I would say President Trump, it's not like he can feel like he has to look into it. President Trump has a constitutional duty to carry out the laws that make sure people aren't engaging in waste or fraud or abuse, that the money's being spent wisely. He has to look into the spending by the Federal Reserve on its building.
It's his job, absolutely right. Now, Mike Faulkender, here's Senator Dave McCormick, a very smart guy from the Banking Committee, with a possible off-ramp. Hang on, here comes the tape.
I don't want to speak for Senator Tillis, but I do think that a path offers real possibility, because I've heard Senator Tillis say that he thinks this is a jurisdictional question for the Banking Committee. So again, I don't speak for him, but I really do think this is the right path, and I think this could open it up.
So, Mike, there's an interesting thought, all right? Let the Banking Committee convene a thorough, top-to-bottom investigation of this Federal Reserve story and the cost overruns. And maybe, you know, I mean, it could be run side by side with the federal government and the DOJ, but let the Banking Committee and the Congress get involved. That might give Mr. Tillis, Senator Tillis, who's a reasonable guy, an off-ramp and get Kevin Warsh in the job come the middle of next month.
That's right. I think that the president is absolutely correct that a review of the Federal Reserve needs to take place. That review should not just be limited to the cost overruns on the construction of the new building, but quite frankly, it should be expanded to look at why did monetary policy fail during the Biden administration? Why did we have 40-year high inflation? Why did we have supervisory failures? And I think that whether that's conducted by the Senate Banking Committee or an idea that I have is why doesn't the president sign an executive order, create a review committee for the Federal Reserve, maybe have Secretary Bessent chair it, move it out of the Department of Justice if that's what satisfies Senator Tillis, but have some kind of of review of the actions. If you do it through the executive branch, if you do it through the legislative branch, I don't know that it matters. But if that's what threads the needle in order to get an investigation that the president rightly deserves to have happen, but satisfies Senator Tillis so that ultimately Kevin Warsh can get confirmed, let's take that exit.
That's the thing. It's great. This is not about interest rates. This is not about Jay Powell's martyrdom and all that stuff. It's about constitutional principles and the legitimate role of government to investigate problems. Okay? That's what this is about. John Yoo, I just got 30 seconds. If Powell stays on and they don't get Warsh in, does President Trump pick a chairman from the existing board of governors?
Yes, President Trump can pick from them. But then I think the next thing he could do is fire Jay Powell, because I think even if these guys are protected from removal for cause, disobeying a legitimate presidential order to cooperate with the Justice Department, I think is for cause. And even under congressional statute, the president can fire a member of the Fed.
Wow, well said. Yes, of course. That is the cause, right. You're just busting up the whole Constitution. Interesting point. John Yoo, thank you so much for that. Mike Faulkender, always, buddy.